Hi there, this is Mr. George, and you are about to watch Web Lecture 4.4. This one is all about the message. As we've been talking about in the past several web lectures, we're talking about political involvement, and we talked about what you need to do to become a candidate. We also talked about how important raising money is for candidates, and now we're going to talk about how you get your message out there. So once you have your platform, how is it that you get the information to voters so that they can choose wisely? So this one's all about the message. So the first thing we need to talk about is media and the campaign. And when we're talking about media, the first thing we talk about is mass media. Now, mass media is that section of the media that is conceived and designed to reach a very large audience. So we're talking about things like newspapers, magazines, radio, television, and the internet. Now, several years ago, the internet was not part of this, but now it has become quite a large segment of the mass media, and we could even include other parts of the internet like Twitter and YouTube specifically as really big parts of the mass media. And as more and more of us have digital smartphones, phones that can receive videos, that will soon also become part of the mass media. And I suspect that as soon as they open up people's cell phone numbers to allow people to access those, that will become a tapped into part of the mass media where you'll just get directed advertisements to your phone number. So that will be something that's coming up pretty soon, and that's all the mass media. They're focusing on getting out a specific message. Now, since the public has this relationship with mass media, and the mass media, their job is to put out shows and sell shows that you want to watch, the political campaigns have to sort of cut through that media and create their own media. And so political campaigns create commercials, they create literature, they create brochures, mailings, so you get lots and lots of those in the mail right around election time. And then there are the other media that are less message specific and more about name recognition. And there's things like posters and buttons and t-shirts and hats and bumper stickers. All of that falls into the media that the campaign creates. And so we have a tricky little relationship here between the media and the campaigns, because a lot of times and recently what campaigns will do is they'll post an advertisement on YouTube or on their political website, and oftentimes what will happen is the media will pick up on that advertisement and in essence give the campaign free advertisement. And so this comes into what the mass media does, and that's something they do. They set the public agenda. Now, these are issues that are relevant to the public, things that the media thinks people will want to hear about. And so they set this agenda for public opinion because they only highlight certain issues. We've talked about in the past that the media is extremely biased, and they're biased mostly not by what they do show, but by the things that they do not show. And so this is a way that the media doesn't necessarily tell people how to think, but it does tell people what to think about. It's not directly saying you must follow this, but it does say, hey, let's think about these things, because most people get their information from some sort of TV news, and they're just highlighting certain things. There's lots and lots of news out there that can be picked up, and so the political campaign has to figure out how to either get on that news or to cut through it so that their message can be delivered. Now, another way for them to deliver their message is by directly going to voters, and that's a technique called canvassing. And so canvassing is a way to really sort of deliver your message directly to the people. Sometimes the candidate does that, sometimes people that work for the candidate do that. And there are many goals for canvassing, certainly identifying your supporters. So if you have a big rally, that's one way to figure out who supports you. It's a way to persuade people. It's a way to make money. So if you're holding a fundraising dinner so that you can make money for your campaign, that's another outcome of canvassing. Sometimes we just the campaign was to develop members, so bringing people onto the team. Other times they're just trying to get people registered to vote, and oftentimes when somebody registers you, you will then turn around and vote for that person. And other times they're just trying to get out the vote. They're trying to get people together so that they can actually deliver them to the polling places, which is a really good way to get somebody's vote as well, is actually take them to the polling places. Now, these are ways for the candidates to get their message out, but when you're looking specifically at a political message, really what you're looking at is what's called propaganda. Now, propaganda, you may have negative connotations too, because a lot of times we think of propaganda and we think of, the Nazis and indoctrinating people. But really what propaganda is it's just a specific type of message. It's aimed at serving a specific agenda. So really, any kind of advertising is a type of propaganda, because it's propagating or actively spreading a philosophy or a point of view, in this case the philosophy or point of view of the politician or of the candidate. And there are multiple types of propaganda, and we're going to take a look at a few of those different types of propaganda. The first one is called glittering generalities, and like its name, it sounds kind of fancy, but it really doesn't mean a whole lot. So it's the way this works is it says very little specifically, but it conveys an emotion. It brings up some like happy thoughts or mad thoughts or sad thoughts for you, mostly happy if it's going to promote the candidate. So an example of a glittering generality is, John Jones has made this nation a better place. And so, that makes you feel good about John Jones. He's making the United States better. Now, it doesn't say how, it doesn't say what he's done, it doesn't say anything about John Jones. It just says that he has made the nation a better place. And really, how can you argue with that? That's something that everybody wants. A second type of propaganda is the bandwagon approach. And basically, if you've ever cheered on a sports team, then you are sort of jumping on the bandwagon, especially if you're cheering them on because they're winning. And that's sort of the idea, is that it encourages people to do something because it's what's popular. And so another example here is, more and more of us want new blood in Washington, and we're voting for Jones. So you can see, if we can convince you that everybody wants something, then that's a good way to vote for it. So here's just a quick example of a bandwagon type advertisement.
I'm Barack Obama, and I approve this message. It starts with one person making a decision that things need to change, and they're going to help change them. That person finds another person who shares their values. They go out and find a few more, and before long, neighborhoods come together. Communities organize. A movement builds. It all starts with you making a decision to get involved, because we've got so much more to do. Call the number on your screen or visit joinobama.com to let me know you're in.
And so as you could see with that advertisement, it was directly trying to get people to buy into that idea that people are doing it, you need to join because your neighbors are joining and everybody's joining, so that falls into that bandwagon approach. Another type of propaganda here is what's called card stacking. What this does is it gives you some information, but it only gives it to you in a partial way, or presents part of the story. So an example of that is, the average income of Americans has risen every year since the election of President Jones. Now what this says is that, it seems like things are going well, but what it omits is the statistic that income of all citizens except the top 20% has actually fallen. So you can use the word average, and people think, oh, well, that means everyone's income has gone up, but really what that means is they've just averaged all incomes. So lots of people at the top, their income has gone up, but everybody else's has actually gone down. So here's an example of card stacking.
1988.
Read my lips. No new taxes.
Then George Bush signed the second biggest tax increase in American history.
Read my lips.
George Bush increased taxes on the middle class. Bush doubled the beer tax and increased the gas tax by 56%. Now George Bush wants to give a $108,000 tax break to millionaires. $108,000. Guess who's going to pay? We can't afford 4 more years.
So as you can see in that one, there was a lot of statistics, and there were specific numbers, so it seems to you that they're telling the truth, but obviously they're not presenting all of the information. about the taxes and the different things that George H.W. Bush had promoted during his presidency. Now, a much more deliberate type of propaganda is that called name calling, and this basically just uses a negative label to stereotype or stigmatize your opponent. So an example here is Michael Dukakis is a card-carrying liberal. A lot of times to people on the conservative side, that idea of being a liberal is negative. And Michael Dukakis was a Democrat, so that certainly would have taken him away from any conservatives that might have been voting for him. So here's an example of a different type of name calling.
I'm Elizabeth Dole, and I approve this message.
A leader of the Godless Americans PAC recently held a secret fundraiser in Kay Hagan's honor.
There is no God to rely on. There was no Jesus.
Well, taking under God out of the Pledge of Allegiance, you're down with that.
We're down with that.
In God we trust, you're going to whip that off the money?
Yeah, we would.
Godless Americans and Kay Hagan. She hid from cameras, took godless money. What did Hagan promise in return?
There is no God.
So as you can see in that advertisement, they really don't directly call Kay Hagan godless, but really use that sort of message to get behind it. And then the voice at the end is apparently supposed to be Kay Hagan, but if you're familiar with her and you know this advertisement, it was pointed out that that was not Kay Hagan's voice, even though that was what it was perceived as if you had watched that commercial. So really just a very specific attack of Kay Hagan. Now, the last two types of propaganda we're going to talk about here are plain folks and transfer, and we're going to watch a quick commercial after this that addresses both of them. So plain folks, and that emphasizes what's similar between the candidate and just a normal average person. So that really, you know, shows that this person is a down-home kind of good person. I was born in a 2-bedroom house and walked to school with my brother. You know, typical kind of average things that a person would do. And another thing is transfer, and that uses some sort of image or a person to give the candidate more credibility. So maybe a war memorial or scenes with other leaders, or in this case, just a cowboy, which is interesting. So we'll take a look at this one, and this will conclude our web lecture.
I'm George W. Bush, and I approve this message.
Keeping things secure isn't a one-time deal. Always something to fix or make stronger. It's a tough job, an important job. It's why you always put your best hand on it.
And as you can see, that message really ties in both the transfer and the average kind of guy message there to present a message in favor of George W. Bush. So hopefully you've gotten some information about the political message and how that gets across, and hopefully this will help you in creating your message once you're creating your campaign. All right, have a great night. Bye-bye.